Another thing I want to see done is this road, Milwaukee Street. I want something done. That road is hazardous. I've almost got hit by people. That road needs to be wider so that we can have paths going down the side of that road. These are all things that need to be done. And I watch this done, and I think this can all be done the right way. Okay, that's all I get to say. 933 Milwaukee Street, Bernie Viva. Over 40 years. 1974. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, hand, come on up. Yes, you with the glasses, sunglasses. One in the middle.
Hello, good evening. Amy Quinn, 2035 Coach Light Court. I can't hear you. Oh, sorry. My name's Amy Quinn. Is that better?
Talk into the mic.
Amy Quinn, 2035 Coach Light Court in Delafield. Are you good?
Go.
Okay. All right. Over the last few weeks, well, I should say, I'm a homeowner here in Delafield and also a business owner. I own Belfry Kitchen across the way. Over the last few weeks, I've spent a lot of time talking to many business owners. And I can tell you without exception, every single one of them, and I've probably spoken to at least 20, have been in favor of this proposal. We've talked about a lot of things, weighing pros and cons, and what we're all looking for and needing, and there's a common theme, and we are, all the people that I've spoken with anyways, we're worried, we're nervous. We've been open, my daughters and I opened Belfry 2.5 years ago, and I've had a front row seat watching what's going on downtown. And there are changes, and it's frightening. Stores have closed, like other people have mentioned. Restaurants have closed, and there's vacant storefronts right now sitting there. There's been a definite shift in energy and vibrancy for sure, and foot traffic. And I'm out there, every day, unfortunately, and I'm watching this. I'm watering the flowers in the morning and noticing that where are the people? Something has changed. And then I go into a neighboring town, unfortunately, and it's a whole different feeling. It's a whole different vibe. There's energy, and it's definitely concerning. We as business owners, I know for myself, have a lot invested and a whole lot at stake. And so I see this project as being exactly what Delafield needs. I love the building. I think it's forward thinking. I've seen all of the different plans, all the different renderings, and I've seen the Hendricks Group change and try to morph and do things that have been asked of them, and I feel like it's a stunning building. Going back to one point, the foot traffic is a big concern. We need it. It's great to have a restaurant that's, hustling and bustling on a Friday and Saturday night, but I need Tuesdays and Wednesdays to be busy. I need lunch crowds. And no doubt this proposal would bring that. So I hope that you consider the business people. I know that there's some in the room. I hope they speak up and let you know that we're worried and we're looking to you for some help.
Great, thank you, Amy. All right, who would like to be next? Yep, come on up.
Thanks for letting me speak. I'm a business owner and a resident, 637 Main Street, James Stouffer, Holy Cow. I agree with the last speaker, and I just want to know, I've been here for 30 years essentially, and I was here during the whole Bob Lang thing. And at the time I can remember not only citizens but council members who were opposing Mr. Lang because he was taking over the town. And now we look back and what he did for this town, you can't argue. It was a wonderful blessing. And I'm going to just say, just offhand, that this new development will be a blessing to us, especially in the downtown area. And I hope that you'll consider it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Come on up, Mike.
My name is, excuse me. My name is Michael Groh. I live at 328 Juniper Court. Been in the city of Delafield for the last 20 years and have had an office in downtown Delafield for the last 5 years. I have two comments. First of all, I believe it's important that we have a clarification of terms. I have heard two words often that have been framing the conversation, and that is historic Delafield. While Delafield may appear to be historic, the reality is that this community has been visually defined by a single developer. I enjoy living in Delafield. I love the work that Bob Lang has done since 1989. But architecture that is representative of a historical period does not equate to an area being historical. There is no historical buildings and or history to protect. And I say that with apologies to Mary Daniels and Hawks End. Last week I sent an email to the members of this Plan Commission. Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Tim, for your prompt and professional responses. And Kent, I thought your email the 19th summarized it very nicely. You wrote, there's a lot of pushback from the community that height this close to the street will fundamentally change the character of the area. And if it's allowed here, it's likely that developers and or others will want to use the same exception on other near-term projects. I think it's an excellent summation, but I would point out quickly that the character of the area began to change dramatically 30 years ago when the old Wisconsin Energy substation transformed into what is now Wheel and Sprocket. I understand the concern with precedence. We always have to be careful with that. But this property, the developers are working to have some trade-offs. Instead of building this corner to corner, wall to wall with no parking, they're investing over $2 million in 87 parking stalls to have additional parking in the community. I think that's a significant contribution that this commission should take into consideration as a trade-off for the concerns about an additional story as well as a modified setbacks. A vote to approve this project tonight will demonstrate that we are a community focused on the future, accepting of change, and diversity in our architecture. A vote to approve this project will show leadership and vision. So I would encourage you all to vote yes tonight for the future of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who would like to be next? Please raise your hand. Come on up.
Hi there, Mike Burns, 148 South Laurel Circle. First of all, I want to say I agree with Jim. I'm hoping I can get some free ice cream, Jim. I think this commission has done a fine job. As someone said earlier, you guys are volunteering your time, and I think we all appreciate that. You've done a fine job of bringing this to the point where it is, using the zoning as a means to, I think, in a sense, negotiate to a point where this is really turning into a great project. I just want to say that I think that the buildings, as I've seen them most recently, actually do fit Delafield very well. I think there'll be an economic benefit to Delafield. I think it'll bring people here, more people here, to visit the city, to shop in the city, to eat at the restaurants, the fine restaurants we have in this city. I think it will add to the tax base. I don't know why it wouldn't. It will create jobs. While I disagree that because you may be creating some exceptions through the variance process, that automatically means that you must make those same exceptions for other developments. This is a unique property. It's a very unique situation. So anyway, I believe it's within your power to make something really good happen. So I'm in favor.
Great, thank you. Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Rick Lieblang, 312 Evelyn Avenue, and I also own a building in downtown Delafield. I absolutely want this proposal to go forward. And I think one thing we've all forgotten is I think we should thank Diane Hendricks for what she's done to this community. Spending the kind of money that she has already and put this building up, which is the same height as an existing building, I think we should look forward and keep going with this proposal. I've been in business for over 30 years in Delafield, and this is the first time in 15 years, and I've told you this before, we're losing business to the surrounding communities. And that scares us all if you're in business. And we have to consider these proposals and quit. Let these businesses grow. It's very important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Gentleman with the glasses, please come up.
Hello, my name is John Rasmussen, W307 and 2605 Golf Hills Drive. I also own Great Harvest Bread Company here in Delafield, 603 Genesee. As many of the other business owners have mentioned, I'll continue that same, echo those same words. As a business owner, I came here 8 years ago. And the reason I came to Delafield is because of what it is, but more importantly, what it can become. And when I see this building, that's not only bringing residents, but it's bringing other businesses as well as office space. A lot of my business comes from obviously residents, but the businesses. And that's a big piece of my growth as well in this community. Right now, my building where I'm sitting is sitting between two vacant buildings. Now, I understand we're going to be getting somebody who's moving into one, but we cannot lose any more businesses. I took a risk coming here 8 years ago when it was not a lot of activity going in. And since I've come in, I've seen new businesses that have come that have survived, and there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm going on in the community. But as Amy had mentioned, it really is starting to downtrend. 2 years ago, I opened up another business over in Oconomowoc. To compare this community as it sits right now to what's happening in Oconomowoc, we saw some statistics and how Oconomowoc is continuing to grow and attract businesses, and even some of the old buildings that they have renovated and bringing in new businesses. One in particular, it's an iconic building in downtown Oconomowoc that looks very much like that one. And I don't think I think Hendricks has done a very nice job in listening to the community and to make some adjustments, but certainly I don't think we need to have cookie cutter buildings to have some diversity. This building that we sit in right now, maybe not everybody loves the architecture of it, but we are, as Mike said, it's not a historical community. Bob was a good steward. He brought in some of the nice buildings that we have here, but I look at what Hendricks is doing. They've invested a lot of money in the current buildings. They're not here to get in and get out, but to invest and to grow and to develop. I moved here 15 years ago, not knowing whether I wanted to bring a business into town or not. We had a little shabby little strip mall that was sitting where my building is right now. The reason why I chose Delafield is because what was built there. And it's been wonderful for me, but we need to continue to grow and to develop. And hopefully that as tonight with speakers that we'll get your vote and hopefully see that building start to be constructed sooner. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Way in the back there.
Okay, Jeff Nepper, 608610 Milwaukee Street, owner of the Niche Building. And I just wanted to let you all know that I'm in favor of this. The renters are in favor of this. I don't know if anybody here got any letters from them. But again, I reiterate, with the same people that were complaining about what Bob Lang was doing or attempting to do are here complaining again tonight. So just keep that in mind, okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who would like to be next? Who would like to be next? Oh, I see a hand.
Hi, I'm Paula Hornbeck. I live in North Prairie. However, I have a business here at 637 Genesee, Eye Candy. I want to start off by saying that I spoke last time to tell you how much I want this project to go forward. I think the buildings are beautiful. I think downtown Delafield really needs what is going to be built here. But I have to tell you that I really resent the fact that my comments were not included as legitimate because I don't live here. Well, I'll tell you, I've had a business here for 11 years. I have more invested in this community than a lot of the people that live around here. I know the people that live here care about what's going on downtown, but nobody cares more than the people that have businesses here. This is our lifeblood. It's not just whether or not they like what it looks like when they're driving by. Maybe they are spending their money here, maybe they're not. But we're spending our money here. We're investing our life and our time, and that really means a lot. And I think the people that are going to speak here tonight, who maybe don't actually live in Delafield, but have their business here, should be heard. Because if this building doesn't get built and another business fails, that's another life that's going to be really suffering. And I think that's important to consider. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Kurt Hakenen, proud resident of Delafield 252 Hickory Drive, also CEO of Montage, a tech company in town. I think the last comments are a really strong sentiment for folks to truly understand, and I'll speak with a level of transparency and directness as it relates to our business and our future here and the conditions that lie ahead. So we started our company about 10 years ago, just 4 of us over here on Wells Street. We've expanded now to 100 employees, 80 of them in Delafield. We were venture capital funded. We hire high-end software engineers and project managers, and we help some of the largest global companies find a new way for hiring. Organizations like Amazon, Walmart, Anheuser-Busch, Johnson Controls, Northwestern Mutual Insurance use our technology to hire the future of their workforce. So we're doing amazing work in the global community. This year there'll be 6 million candidates that conduct interviews on our technology platform. As we think about the future, we had an exciting event since the last time we met about 45 days ago. A private equity firm, Riverside Company out of Cleveland, $1 billion plus private equity firm, purchased Montage and merged us with another company called Shaker International. And in the technology world, this is a major milestone, and the thesis behind the investment is one of significant growth. We are in a category in an industry where companies spend $160 billion a year in the US alone on hiring, and we are at the forefront of disrupting that business model. So we have a growth thesis as a business to continue to grow our business at 30 or 40% per year on top of the now 200 employees we have between the merged entities. We're co-headquartered in Delafield, Cleveland, and we have a development center in Atlanta. And if you read our press release, you'll notice that I proudly made sure that the press release said Delafield and Cleveland, not Milwaukee and Cleveland. But I do have a choice to make as a leader of this business, despite the fact that my heart is here and my family and my home is here. I need to lead our business for growth for the sake of the investors in our business, and do it from my mind and not solely from my heart. And that choice is very real as we look forward. As you consider 30% growth.
30 seconds.
Yep, 30% growth. That's dozens of new jobs a year. And quite simply, I have a choice to make. Are those jobs going to arrive in Cleveland, Atlanta, or Delafield? I prefer they would be here. We have a great partner in Hendricks to support us. Don't take them for granted. And this is not a threat, but a statement of fact. Don't take our presence here in Delafield for granted as well. I'd love to continue to do great things here, but it is conditional upon having the right environment to do so.
Great, thank you. No clapping, please. No clapping, please. Let's all be respectful. I'd appreciate it. Everyone would. Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Thank you all. Steve Kistner. I reside in Waukesha, and I live at my place of business, which is Stephen Paul Designs.
Sir, that's a zoning violation.
So, that being said, I've been here for 12 years. I came in 12 years ago in May on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. All the businesses were closed, still beautiful. Ran into one person reading his paper in front of his business. He owns a car shop down on Milwaukee Street. Saw a shop here in town that was closing. It was a silver shop. Right next to it was a travel agency. Pinned on the bulletin board of that travel agency was landlord, Rick Liebling. Made a phone call to him that day and made a handshake to him. Opened my business then. Things were bustling. Things were amazing here. While Oconomowoc, our little sister city, had severed its own neck with its own streets, and all those businesses died down. They tried to buy me and my business partner out to come there. We decided not to. We were rooted here. We were here. We've been doing this. We want to keep doing this. This is the smallest last footprint that we have in Delafield. There's not going to be a 6-story or a 7-story. It's one building. Let's tie it together. Let's make it happen. If we don't get this, we're going to get a box 3 stories high with no parking. You think we have parking problems now? Let her make this happen. That's my view. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Who would like to be next? We got a lot of people here. Come on up.
Yeah, exactly.
Jack Dembski at 318 Bleecker Street. One, I apologize. Last time I was here, I called some people old. That was not my intention. I was only merely looking towards the future, so don't hold that against me, please. Especially now that people know where I live. I would argue that this is not a question of where we sit with how this plays in the rules. This is a question of how do we want to finish off the downtown. And the building that I see before me today really would capstone the downtown development in a way that would lead this complete city forward. The positives are there, and I would kind of, making this quick, say there's always going to be haters to every great thing that happens in history. People love to hate the Yankees, people love to hate the Patriots, and they've continued to put through winning teams, and they continue to be on top. And keeping us on top in our community, amongst our neighboring cities, I think this is going to be one of those projects that you guys could put a feather in your hat with. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. We all consider ourselves young up here. Who'd like to be next? A lot of people. Come on up, the young lady right there, please.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Bonnywell. I live at 761 Mill Street, and my husband and I are against this. We think it's way too high for being on Genesee Street. It blocks the buildings. When you walk down Genesee Street, it blocks the buildings in back. And another thing, if they want to bring all this business in downtown, what is it going to do to the parking places? There's no place to park downtown. So what are you going to do with these people? I think it looks nice, but I think it's just going to be way too tall on Genesee Street. So I know that's all I got to say.
Great, well, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Who'd like to be next? Yep, right there, come on up.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Johnson. I live at 300 South Lapham Peak Road in Delafield here. I also have a business at 605 Main Street, which is called Delafield Main Street Boutique. I just wanted to voice that I am in very much support of this development. My husband and I came to Delafield just over 8 years ago, looked at houses everywhere within the Lake Country area, Brookfield, actually moved from Brookfield. We chose Delafield because of how much we loved the community. We always felt welcomed every time we came here. We love going to Lapham Peak, love the businesses, love the restaurants. I also had a dream of one day opening up my own business, and just over a year ago, I was able to do that. And I feel so lucky and so blessed with the business, with the community, and I really think this development will just only help all of our businesses grow and prosper. I have, 10-year growth plans out there for my businesses. I'm sure many of us do, and I think this development will help us blow away those plans. And that is all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Okay, who'd like to be next? Come on, guys. We're trying to get through this. Gentleman right there, please.
Craig Shiverati, 435 Wells Street. Been here 5 years. I work at Liebling's, and I come here with 7 or 8 residents from the apartment complex that we live in, and we are all in favor of this. It's just going to be a boom to the community, and I hope you guys vote for it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Who'd like to be next? Right there.
I am Jeremy Craven, 226 White Pine Road in Delafield. And one of the previous speakers was a business owner who was not a resident here, but she had mentioned she had spoken at the last meeting and felt like her view had been dismissed. And I had read a newspaper article reporting on that meeting and had noticed the same thing. And so on that basis, I felt motivated to come down here as a resident and voice support for this project for myself and for my wife. So thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Lady right there, please. Yep, on the pink.
I certainly didn't plan on this.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yes. Well, maybe you won't be, because I have 2 questions. Can you ask?
Please speak in the name and address.
Oh,
Name and
my name
address.
is Marjorie Noel, 2293A Circle Ridge Drive.
And no, you can't ask questions. We're here to listen to you. So we're
Goodbye.
interested in what you have comments about.
Well, no, okay. 2 things, and what I'm saying then may be incorrect because I don't have answers to my questions. When we were talking about the aquifer and the conservancy and so forth, we're talking about putting 87 parking spaces under the hotel, which of course would be for the residents. But isn't that land still in conservancy?
Okay. Do you have any other comments?
One other question was, and I'm sorry, I don't hear very well, even
okay.
with the aids, they're not that good. I also heard someone mention, and I think I heard correctly, that at this time, we have quite a few vacancies in the apartments and the condos that are already here. So what makes everyone think this is going to fill up? And where are these people going to work?
Okay.
Oh, sorry, question.
Yeah.
That's
So-
it. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you for coming. Okay, who'd like to be next? Gentleman in the back.
Good evening. My name is Ted Dunham. I live at 129 South Laurel Court here in Delafield, Wisconsin. Thank you guys so much for hearing everybody out, and I really applaud the community's discourse tonight. I think it's been very respectful. It's a big, big part of the reason why my family and I moved here. We just celebrated our 6-year anniversary living in this community. I work for a large corporation that's based in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and I've moved with my family 4 times in the last 16 years. When we look for places to live, and I'm a relative authority on it, sadly, we look for 2 things. We have 2 boys, both have matriculated through the public school system here, one going into high school, one into middle school. We look for 2 things. One is the school system, and the other is the vibrancy of the community that we're investing our home, which is where the disproportionate amount of our home equity is and our wealth is really deposited. On the school front, I think it's already been mentioned, it's an embarrassment that we've turned down the referendum. It's a discussion for another day. So we've lost that battle. But I made a commitment to my wife and to my family that we wouldn't lose this one. So on the spirit of vibrancy of the community, we had the choice to move anywhere we wanted to in the Milwaukee community. We chose Delafield because of the vibrancy of the community that it afforded and the potential for us to see this city continue to thrive. There's this idea, and unfortunately, it's actually a privilege for me, we have the opportunity to recruit people from all around the world. And I'd say on probably 5-7 times a month, I am asked by individuals, white-collar individuals, blue-collar individuals, Ted, where would you recommend that we live? And up until now, without a question, I've said Delafield, Wisconsin. We could have lived in Merton. We got feedback about Kettle Moraine schools. I said, I believe in the school system. We believe in the school system. We're invested here. But the vibrancy of this community was what their equalizer was for our family and why we chose to be here. So I still say Delafield, Wisconsin, because of the potential of what this type of investment offers us. The last piece I'd say, and I have the good fortune of mentoring many young people, is this concept of an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost. What's the opportunity cost of a vacant lot? I'd argue it's a massive one and one that we cannot afford. So I respectfully submit my endorsement on the record for this project and really look forward to the next steps ahead. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Who would like to be next, please? Yep, come on up.
Good evening, Tracy Jones, 1751 West Shore Drive in Delafield. And I want to say that I am hoping that we will be able to find a way to build this building. And I do understand that there are some issues and concerns because we do have zoning laws and ordinances here that have to be considered. I think that we can hopefully work through that process because as you heard from the business owners need people to come into town. We, as residents of this town, want to come downtown and enjoy the businesses. Just like the gentleman before me with the corporate transfers, I come from a family. We corporate transferred multiple times all through my childhood and into my adulthood with my husband. And I come from an historic New England town. And one of the reasons that when we moved here 12 years ago, we chose Delafield over some of the Arrowhead feeder towns was because of the shopping and the buildings and the quaintness. And just like where I'm originally from in New England, I can walk from my house downtown. I know my neighbors. A lot of my neighbors are here tonight. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. But I love them. They make this town.
That sounds like a political answer.
We like it too. So I don't know how to solve your issues with the height and the setbacks. I think it's a great building. I think the Lang buildings are great buildings, and I hope that you guys can figure out a way to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to be next, please? Nobody else? Anybody else? Okay. Public hearing number 1 is done, and we did it in an hour and a half. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to public hearing number 2. Amended conditional use permit, DLC 0734.989, 4024 Nagawicca Road, Heartland, University Lake School. Sunvest Solar Incorporated. Consider an amended conditional use and site plan to accommodate installation of a solar collection system with the north of Vedelson Road. Is there anybody that would like to speak to this public hearing number 2? Anybody like to speak to public hearing number 2? Seeing none, public hearing number 2 is now closed. Public hearing number 3, amended conditional use permit, DELC 0793.049, 408 Main Street, Delafield, John D. Tomasani. Consider an amended conditional use and site plan to accommodate a 4-unit attached single-family development that is proposed with less building area than recently approved. Is there anybody that would like to speak to public hearing number 3? Anybody to public hearing number 3? Seeing none, public hearing number 3 is now closed. We'll move to item number 1 in the agenda, approved planning commission meeting minutes of May 29th, 2019 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve with one amendment. I'll point it out to the clerk. It just has to do with the statement in there about the application for the CBD oil shop. It said that the health department, Waukesha Health Department does regulate it, and I specifically said it doesn't. It's a minor change, so if everyone's okay with that as a change, I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second? Ed?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Item number 2, City of Delafield citizens' comments pertaining to subject on the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, citizens' comments for the consent agenda are now closed. Do I have a motion or on the consent agenda as it exists, or does anybody want to pull anything off?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as it exists.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, it's approved. We'll move on to number 4. City of Delafield citizens' comments pertaining to items on or off the agenda. So this is your opportunity to speak to anything that's on or off the agenda that you have a concern about. Would you like to come up and speak?
I think you agree with something.
All right, one more time. Any citizens' comments? Seeing none. Citizens' comments are now closed. Okay, I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess for a quick restroom break, and then we'll come back and start with unfinished business number 5A.
doing anything for a second. Obviously, like it's there.
Mike, let me know when you're ready. Ready to go? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go to 5A, unfinished business, review and discussion of floor area and basement calculations. So this is just for discussion, and I'll let Roger give the detailed summary and the building inspector. But what we're trying to do here is address how we calculate the floor area ratio in our code. And we've done a lot of work at staff level for a number of months. Frankly, started when I became mayor. And this has been a problem that I've seen exhibited many times over the 20-some years that I've lived here. It affects the construction of residential properties anywhere in the city, on the lake, downtown. And it's the process of how we calculate how much area you can finish when you build a house. So there's situations where the code is basically we're encouraging people to not follow the code, to designate large spaces within their application to the city that they list as unfinished. Then they are given a permit to do that, and it affects their neighbors based on the size of their buildings. It affects the people that may potentially buy that in the future. They see an open basement on a walkout. They purchase the property, assume they can finish it, come into the city, into the building inspector, say, hey, I want a permit to finish my basement. They already are maxed at their floor area ratio. They cannot finish it. So long story short is this has been an ongoing problem for a lot of time. It requires a code change. And I want to start the discussion of moving forward with a recommendation for a code change. So I'm going to have Roger and Scott go over the details of it. But I think this has been a long time coming. We're not in a rush. We're going to do this over 2 or 3 meetings. And when we come to an agreement, we're going to, hopefully make a recommendation to change the code.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. First of all, I guess I should qualify some of Kent's statements. This hasn't been a problem. This has been an opportunity to seek clarity, and we've struggled to come up with a solution that would satisfy a person's expectation in their home design and construction. But I think it's also important to understand, particularly those of you at home that may be viewing, is that this new ordinance would only apply to new construction. If you have an existing home with a basement, particularly if it's a walkout and you have the opportunity to finish it, you may be able to finish it without any limitations. That's up to the building inspector. But from this point forward, we want to seek clarity and have a uniform analysis as to how much area within a building is truly buildable, so as to avoid the complications of trying to explain to a person 5 years after they built their new home that the attic space that they intended to increase their living space is really not legal or accessible to them. So starting with some of the definitions in our current code to give you an idea of what sort of issues we were dealing with. Just the definition alone of a basement doesn't give you any idea or understanding that how a walkout should be calculated in a basement. Currently, the definition of a basement is defined by an area that's below grade, the ceiling of which is no more than 4 feet above grade. We think it's important to modify that and have an understanding of exactly how that will be working with a new interpretation of the code. As part of this explanation and presentation, we have provided some sketches, just some diagrammatic sketches to understand how this would work for basements particularly. As you can see from the information provided, that when it comes to the basements, we're actually dealing more with the space above grade, and we are introducing the term average unimproved slope. So the average unimproved slope is that area at the top of the grade, say at the back of the house or in the front of the house if it's a walkout. It would be the difference, and the unimproved slope would be the difference between that finished grade at one elevation and the finished grade at the lower elevation. There are 4 different variations of that. For instance, if you could have a lookout basement, the application of a basement really applies to that area that's 3 feet above that finished slope. That'll determine in a plan where your basement begins, or where your basement ends and where livable space begins. If it's a reverse walkout, for instance, we recently had a petition to consider, it was the Cooks with a drive-in basement, essentially a drive-in basement that was at the front of the house. The same parameters would apply here, except here your finished grade is a full 9 feet. Wherever it's above 3 feet, from that point forward would be floor area. From that point back would be basement. Here's your typical basement that doesn't have a walkout. Anything greater than 3 feet would be livable. Anything 3 feet or less would be considered basement. In the case of a walkout where the finished grade changes an entire 9 feet, wherever that 3-foot elevational difference is between the top of the foundation and the grade would constitute the break line between what's identified as basement and what's identified as floor area. Those diagrams illustrate for you, how it would be interpreted. Scott has given this, some good attention. Some of the questions that we're trying to overcome is whether or not, not all basements are square. Some of them have wings. Some of them, are asymmetrical. In which case, Scott has an understanding of using this formula and that 3-foot height point, and then being able to consider the ratio of all the sides to determine exactly where the boundary line falls. Is that a good explanation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it's important. We're trying to determine what counts as floor area, whether it's finished or not. Because then it's accounted for whether they finished it today or later. And so that's, I think, the key difference between what we have now and what we're proposing.
In regards to attics and walk-in spaces, we've drastically modified the language in regards to floor area such that what was previously identified as anything less than 7.5 feet was not considered usable space. But in many instances, building out a 7.5-foot ceiling in an attic to expand perhaps a play area or additional bedroom for children, that's floor area and should be considered as such. So we modified the ordinance, or suggesting to modify the ordinance, such that that headroom, anything less than 5 feet.
How do you count that with a gable? Where's your?
It's the interior headspace.
So if one spot of that is 7.5 feet, there's a collar tie up there or something, and you've got 612 pitch roof or something.
Well, we're eliminating that now because it's only going to be 5 feet.
Okay.
So it's going to be hard to use that for anything other than storage.
Storage, I got it.
Some of the other issues with the existing ordinance is that in regards to residential properties, it has a whole list here of exterior porches, decks, enclosed breezeways, balconies, unfinished basements and attics, unenclosed carports and parking areas are not to be considered as gross area, which contradicts itself because in the existing definition of floor area, your garage space is part of your floor area. And it also differentiates between residential and commercial. And if we are enacting these stricter standards, they would apply to commercial as well. So we don't have a variance in the interpretation or enforcement in that regard.
And does this apply to outbuildings or just living?
Outbuildings are part of your floor area.
Correct.
So if you have a loft, like that guy who came in last month, was putting up the barn, the pottery guy, was he putting a loft in there?
Right, that would count.
You would
as floor
count
area.
that then?
Yeah, if it has more than 5-foot headroom.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So the real impact, I think, in regards to residential neighborhoods is that with these changes, the areas in the basement or in the attics that have the potential for realizing future finishing will be incorporated as part of the floor area of that building at the time of building permitting. so that in the future, they would not actually be allowed to, or they would be allowed to build them out because it's already approved as part of their floor area. The end result will be, for the most part, a downsizing, if you will, in regards to the overall massing of the homes that are realized above the basement. You know, you might not get the huge roofs, the steep pitches, because they are essentially creating floor area by implementation of those elements.
So I'll say that I don't. Turn my mic on. I don't necessarily think there's stricter standards or just clearer standards, which is way better. But in the case where, in most cases, when the situation exists right here, I mean, we're going to want to look at, along with this, whether or not the floor space